Are you a visible minority who struggles with your voice in the entertainment industry? Are you a dancer who loves to create and wants to transition into choreographing? Or did you work on a film or TV show last year and looking for ways to build longevity within the commercial world? This is Season 2, Episode 4, Number 37, called Ear to the Streets, with Amanda May Wilson. There's a bird. There's a bird.
There's a bird. There's a whole bird.
J.K. Rowling, the author of the famous Harry Potter book series, once said, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation in which I rebuilt my life." Now, with everyone feeling very uneasy during this period of isolation, we want to spread some light and some love to everyone. On behalf of the Dance Plug Canada, we'd like to remind you that we are here for you. We're in solidarity with you. And we will be all right. Now, it's no secret that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected artists around the world. But if there's one thing that we do know about artists, that we're very resourceful, resilient, and above all, supportive. Just this last week, dancers have been participating in online dance classes from their favorite instructors, challenging each other to in-home sessions, and have been providing resources and support to one another. A fellow community member and past guest on our show, Mingbo Lam, also posted a few days ago about some ways you can help our community. Some of those ways are signing the petition circulating to advocate support for dancers through government relief programs, purchasing gift cards to small and local businesses that you can use at a later date, donating what you have previously purchased instead of asking for a refund, and for example, keeping your studio or gym membership active, or donating a ticket that you previously purchased for a performance. Check in with your dance instructors, small business owners, freelance friends. Check in with everyone. Even if you DM them with some words of support, it can truly go a long way. The Government of Canada also just recently announced an update by consolidating the Emergency Care Benefit and the Emergency Support Benefit into the Canada Emergency Relief Benefit, or CERB. Now, this taxable benefit provides Canadians with $2,000 a month for 4 months and applies to wage earners as well as contract workers and the self-employed, those who would normally be ineligible for employment insurance. The portal for accessing the CERB is expected to be live on April 6th, and once you've finished the application, you can expect the funds to be in your account within 10 business days. You can find more information about the CERB on the Government of Canada's website by visiting www.canada.ca. The Toronto Arts Foundation and the Toronto Arts Council are also introducing the TO Artists COVID Response Fund. This fund will allocate up to $1,000 to the self-employed and individual artist residents in Toronto whose work has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. For more information about the fund and to apply, you can visit www.torontoartscouncil.org. Applications are now open and will be accepted until April 30th. Now, as a reminder, here at the Dance Plug, we also started a relief fund dedicated to the freelance dance artists residing in Toronto who are dealing with tremendous financial losses due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, as most of you know, most dancers in our community are not eligible to apply for employment insurance as they are independent contractors. You can find the link to donate in our show notes. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to Season 2 of the Unplugged podcast presented by Dance Plug Canada. My name is Rory Bonozo, and I'm a former dance studio manager turned dance entrepreneur and advocate. Each week, we bring you a guest or guests who talk about their experiences working in the industry, along with some valuable insight and opinions about hot topics in our community. This week, we sat down with the lovely Amanda May Wilson. She is a professional dancer and aspiring choreographer born and raised in Toronto, Canada. After being self-taught for many years, she began her formal dance training at 14 years old, studying hip-hop, jazz, contemporary, and musical theater through several collectives, companies, and troupes. Through achievements such as the Pulse on Tour's Elite Protege Scholarship and the Monsters of Hip Hop show, she has trained and worked closely with global industry heavy hitters such as Brian Friedman, Gil Duldulao, JaQuel Knight, and Parris Goebel, to name a few. You can see Amanda May on screen in Full Out, Heartbeats, Disney Zombies, and The Next Step. She's worked with artists such as Deborah Cox, Janet Jackson, and Agnes Mo, as well as major brands such as Nike and Roots. You can catch her choreographic works in Make It Pop, Firefly, and Utopia Falls. Amanda May is looking forward to continued growth in her craft and what she prays will be a career of longevity in dance. Now, we're really excited for you to hear what she has to say. So without further ado, this is Season 2, Episode 4, Number 37, called Ear to the Streets, with Amanda May Wilson. recording from Dance Life X Center in downtown Toronto. I'm here with the incomparable Amanda Mae Wilson. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm nervous.
We all are. It's a crazy time. It's a very crazy time.
Yeah, I feel a little bit uneasy, but taking it slow, finding my pace.
100%. For anyone listening, hope you guys are all staying safe, practicing social distancing. Me and Amanda are, I think, 6 feet apart. But yes, thanks again to, Steph and Dance Life for being so accommodating and, hosting this episode as we try to navigate through this very crazy time. And, we hope that for those listening, you guys can take something away from my interview with Amanda, because I know this is a guest that a lot of people have been waiting to hear from. So
cool.
Yeah. Ready to get started?
Yes.
Well, why don't you tell us where your journey in dance begins?
My journey in dance began in the womb. Okay. I'm a product of a very musical family. My mom sang, she used to dance. My dad is a musician. Everybody in my family sings. Music was all around. So I guess I was like born and bred into dance a little bit. But my journey as a training dancer didn't really begin until I was in church, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started dancing in church. There was a couple that I became really close to that I guess we can dive into about later. But they kind of counseled me and really mentored me and introduced me to dance on a higher level. Mm-hmm. And I kind of took it and ran. Yeah.
Nice. Well, let's get into that. So who are some key individuals that played an integral role in your development as an artist?
I think there are 5 major individuals. Sorry, maybe 6. The first 2 are that couple. Their names are Greg and Charlene Hines, not Gregory Hines the Tapper, but Gregory Hines and Charlene Hines were 2 original members of Doodat. And I met them right after they left Doodat because they got saved and they started going to church regularly. That's where they met me and my family while we were going to a church called Rhema Christian Ministries. They had their own dance crew or dance collective that they were growing and developing in our children's ministry. And my sister and I would always kind of sneak into the rehearsals and see what was going on. And eventually we started learning their pieces without them knowing. One day they said, hey, show us what you got type of a thing. And we went in and we did the choreography that they were learning for a performance. And they were so hyped because they thought that we were doing it better than some of the people that have been training with them for a time. And from that, we built a very fruitful relationship.
Nice.
And they're like my second parents now. Mm-hmm. The second person would be Addie Chan. Addie was the first person to book me on a major job. She was the choreographer on a movie, and then shortly after that I had worked on, and then shortly after that, she booked me as one of her assistants for the television show Make It Pop that aired on Nickelodeon for 2.5 years. Addie did the groundwork for me to get my life together. She definitely came into my life at the perfect time. I didn't really know that choreography was something that I wanted to pursue until I worked with her, and that was quite a fruitful time in my life. I did not know what I was doing. Addie, I am so sorry. But she really held me down and held me accountable and was so nurturing at that time. A third person, and probably my most important person is Tamina Pollock Parris. She is currently a professional dancer, professional choreographer. She ran the girls club, and I know a lot of female dancers in Toronto can definitely say that Tamina played a huge part in their training. Tamina took me in right when I finished high school, and I was one of the original members of girls club. Stayed with her for 5 years. She helped me find my womanhood, helped me find my truth, helped me find my honesty, helped me find my pace when I hit the ground running. Shavar Blackwood helped me find my primal my like the masculine side of my movement that I love so much. He also regularly used me as an assistant and often challenged me to just be 10 steps ahead of him at all times, to fulfill what he wanted for his visions. And that really taught me a quickness. Tamina actually taught me that as well. Tamina and Shavar both really contributed to my love for teaching actually as well, because of how they challenged me as their assistants. And then some more, two others, Gil Duldulao, who is the choreographer, artistic director for Janet Jackson. I met him through my work, the Pulse on Tour. He was the first choreographer out of the entire bunch to really look at me like a person. I was not a dancer. He didn't care for me as a dancer. Well, he did, but that wasn't nearly as important as who I was and what I had experienced and what I loved about dance. And he saw that, extracted that, and nurtured it. And he still holds me down to this day. Nice. And the last person would be Tanisha Scott, who is a new influence of mine, newer. I've always looked up to her. My entire career as a dancer, because she was also dudette. So Greg and Charlene talked about her often. So I always knew of her. When I met her, it was actually through friends and not through work. But when I started working with her, I realized how much she meant to me, just being another Black woman in the upper echelons of entertainment, doing her thing and really like commanding the community to understand and feel us deeply. So yeah, so she holds a very special place in my heart.
That's great. Perfect segue into my next question, because you were talking about, being Black women in the upper echelons of the entertainment industry. So, being a visible minority in the entertainment world, what are some things that you struggled with? What do you think also needs to be done to accurately represent the realities of multiculturalism, especially in our society today?
That's a big question. I think it always comes down to representation. I am a brown skinned girl, and I noticed that along with being a Black woman of a medium, I guess, brown skin tone also works specifically against me in some scenarios. Often we are too Black. For a long time, a lot of people know me for my afro, because I would rock it all day, every day, and in its nappiest form, like I wasn't using any texturizer. I was still learning my hair. So I didn't even know how to like curl define, nothing like that. I just wore it as it was when I got out the shower. And that was very liberating for me. And although it worked for me at the time, I was the only Black girl at the time. And this was maybe like 6-7 years ago, that was regularly wearing my hair out. It's still, I was too Black. I was very specific. My look got very specific. That was a huge learning curve for me. I was still kind of learning about the industry and how to play the game, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. But I realized very early on that I wasn't interested in playing any kind of a game. Although now I wear my hair in twists regularly, because that's just what I enjoy for right now. And that's the stage of my hair care protective styling that I'm in currently. Like, I just think that the industry, at least in Canada, is not really on our side. Perhaps as an actor, I would feel like I had more opportunities available to me. But as a dancer, unless the role is specific to Black women, there's only space for one of us. And, the type of Black girl that they want. Do they want the Black girl with the long silky weave? Do they want the Black girl with her fro out? Do they want the Black girl with the twists or the locks? Do they want, do they want the lighter complexioned Black girl, which is quite often the case? Or do they want someone, the list goes on and on and on. So that is my main struggle, and that continues to be my main struggle. I have to decide every day with every opportunity, whether or not I am willing to not dilute myself, but to just shelve my frustrations in order to support myself financially.
100%.
Yeah.
What do you think needs to be done to make sure there is an accurate representation across the board?
There needs to be more of us up there. Tanisha is a great example of somebody who has a lot of artistic control in her career. The artists that she works with are coming to her for her work, specifically for what she brings out of a person, for what she creates, in an energy of multiple people. And we need more people like that. It's coming along. It absolutely is coming along. Like the rate of Black female business owners, directors, producers, writers, event planners, record label execs. Like there are colored women all over the place. And that is such a beautiful thing to see. We just need, we just have to continue on, continue fighting the good fight and break through that glass ceiling. Mm-hmm. And those of us who aren't at that level yet need to go in that direction. Not in the, if you don't have to be an exec. If you just want to be a dancer and you just want to work on your performance, it's important for you to support those who are in those spaces fighting the good fight, so that those who do not understand their experience firsthand, or who aren't allies, they see that there is a community of people backing the ideologies of those people in those higher places. Tanisha, is able to thrive because she has a community of people backing her as well. Her work speaks for itself, but she also has incredible support, people who are willing to vouch for her, and having that community under a person really exponentially grows the level of outreach that they have, I think.
I think that's great. I think having a strong support system in any, in any medium is very important to anyone's growth, right? Mm-hmm. Now, earlier on in the interview, you had mentioned that you were working with Addie Chan as a assistant choreographer on Make It Pop. Mm-hmm. So we've already established that you've had the opportunity to kind of work on set. How has diversifying your skill set benefited you?
Diversifying my skill set has benefited me in many, many beautiful ways. Often when I'm asked to do things, I'm asked because I am the one person or one of very few people that can fulfill what is being asked of me. I think the more we research, the more we culture ourselves on different worlds of understanding, we create a very broad perspective, a very nurtured outlook on whatever project it is that we are involving ourselves in. And that well-rounded approach makes us very multilingual. I think that dance can sometimes be very far removed from other art forms and other industries, because I think out of all of the art forms, I'd like to believe that dance is the most specific. You look at it and, if you're a non-dancer, you see it and it's grand and perhaps you understand some vocabulary, you know how it makes you feel, but you don't know how to measure the quality. Whereas if you're listening to music, perhaps you don't know how to measure the quality, but you know if somebody's voice is cracking, Yeah. I think visual art tends to be a bit more ambiguous as well. But all of that considered, I think that with us being so far removed already, speaking the languages of other art forms, speaking the languages of business, speaking the languages of marketing, and diversifying your skill set in that regard, researching how the industries around us interact with dance, that makes you more knowledgeable when you are in the room and when you are faced with the opportunity to negotiate a good rate, or when you are faced with the opportunity to create something a bit more withstanding, a bit more sustenance, a bit more effective, that plays to an audience of dancers as well as an audience of non-dancers. It makes you just more multifaceted so that you can play the game very, very well. And then it doesn't become a game anymore. Mm-hmm. You learn tactics and you learn how to cloak the information in a way that the people around you can understand, so that they're not quick to say, no, we can't do that. They have more bandwidth to listen. Yeah. You create that bandwidth with your research. So
now you've had an opportunity to assist in choreographing for a lot of commercial work. including most recent on Utopia Falls TV, which is streaming on Hulu.
Yeah.
And is
And
it out? Is it on a CBC Gem yet? No.
Yeah, it is.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So make sure to check that out. And on Grand Army, which is slated to be released on Netflix, soon. We don't know when, but soon.
Yes.
Now, is choreographing for film and TV something that you want to pursue?
Absolutely. I love TV and film. I love and I think I learned this working with Addie most, is that there's always a way. There's always a way. Film and TV is a world of strategy, because everything is attached to, a product, a feeling, an intention. I mean, every piece of work is that, but film and TV differs because there are numbers to support. They're like direct numbers, does their show get ratings? Do people tune into this episode because it has dance in it? Like that type of information gives you immediate feedback. So because it's such a lucrative world as well, the money and the time becomes so important. And you often have to be very strategic in how you use that time, whether it be in rehearsals or on set or in the meetings when you're developing the product before it's even seen. Like you have to be mindful of all the worlds working together, because nobody has time, nobody has patience, and all people can think about is, will we be making money off of this later? I've been very fortunate to work on projects where the writers and the creators of the show are often very artistically involved, and that is really a luxury that I've just so happened to have those experiences. So as a choreographer, I haven't yet experienced the resistance that can find itself in that process as vigorously as some other people may have. But I just love it so much. I love fighting the good fight. Like I can't lie. I love writing that good email that, sends the world exploding because nobody thought of that before and now it's affecting everybody's department. But I love also leading with a solution as well. I like broadening the perspective of those around me as it pertains to dance, bridging the gap between those worlds, and really creating a fire project that is seen on things like Netflix and networks like, like the city TVs and the global TVs or whatever, what have you, the CWs and the Hulus and the Amazon Primes. Like I love seeing it come to life. I think one of my favorite experiences on Make It Pop was watching Addie go through world explosion after world explosion, because she was fighting the good fight and making sure quality dance was still seen. Although it was not necessary to get the job done, she just valued being in a position where she could fight for it being seen and being captured properly. And witnessing that was just so inspiring to me. I was like, yo, there's always a way. There's always a way. So
do you think the onus is on, the choreographers to kind of educate producers or the cinematographers on how to maybe capture dance? Because I've had this conversation before where it's like you do a specific scene multiple times, and then when it finally gets released, you ask yourself, why would they even choose that? Right?
I think that it is incredibly important for choreographers to stand their ground. It's also important for dancers to be professional, be efficient, to be hardworking, to be focused, so that when the world explodes, the choreographer doesn't have to worry about the dance part. They can just manipulate the dance part. So having quick thinkers and problem solvers is also great. I think also, and I was having this conversation with someone the other day, that choreographers, if the work involves dance, if the director is not a dancer or knowledgeable in the dance experience closely enough, the choreographer needs to be in the editing room. That's something that I don't see ever. I haven't been granted the opportunity to be in the editing room for outside of my own personal work, or, just like smaller scale projects where there's a bit more flexibility with deadlines. But I think choreographers need to be in the editing room just as much as the directors do, because that's the big discrepancy. It's like non-dancers don't know the difference between us five doing the choreography in our buff together and clean, and doing it well together and clean. Or doing it well together and clean, and then maybe somebody fumbles one part, so an arm is off here or there. They really don't know the difference. I don't know intellectually what that breakdown is. I don't know how that happens, but they just don't know. So if we don't have an advocate in post, how can we expect anything to change when we see it back and we're dancing off beat?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes back to just, your point earlier about, time and money coming into play, right?
Yeah.
Having a choreographer in the room means more money that a production has to spend. But it might take something as simple as, investing that money to making sure that the product is 100%.
They will invest in a good director, and the money is absolutely there. Yeah. I think that just to piggyback off of that point, yes, like it requires money, but that's a teaching. That's a lesson that just needs to be learned. I think that's just a shift that perhaps could take place in our industry, is teaching these production companies that it is important for a choreographer to be in play in those rooms at all times, because if the project requires dance is not a subsidiary thing. It's an addition to what's happening. It is the substance of what's happening. So it's slow work though. It's definitely slow work. Yeah.
Now, last summer, Toronto was presented with a plethora of opportunities in the commercial world, and lots of dancers got the opportunity to work on set, some of which for the first time. Can you talk about your thoughts from someone who has already had this experience of being on set about, the professionalism and etiquette that you've noticed? Were we as a city prepared? I know you touched a bit on it earlier. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, I've heard quite a few tales, as well as seen some pretty alarming things on my own. I think if it comes down to one thing, to condense everything, I think if it comes down to one major thing, it's just dancers need to be quick. That seems to be a complaint regularly. It was a complaint that I witnessed with working with Tanisha. It's a complaint that I see when I'm working in LA, when I'm assisting, whatever. Dancers aren't quick thinkers. I think that taking classes and getting better at dancing is very important. Being great, being an excellent dance artist is great, but the work ethic is just not there. The being problem solvers is not there.
Sorry, I'm just gonna go off that point because we're probably gonna touch on this anyway. But when you talk about dancers wanting to be quick, you mean it in a sense of being able to adapt and being malleable, right?
Yes, dancers need to be quick to adapt and more malleable. I think often dancers associate with being quick thinkers, which with being the vocal problem solvers. Mm-hmm. If I can say a suggestion when the choreographer is asking, although some choreographers prefer that and they don't mind. But what I witness is that, you may think that you're being a quick thinker and you may think that you're working really well, but you don't, because you have not researched enough to speak the language of this person, because you haven't observed enough to know the other circumstances that are playing into this decision that they're not really sure how to navigate openly in front of you. And because you aren't recognizing your role as a dancer, as, for lack of a better word, a little bit of a pawn in this situation, and that you are the tool that is being used to fulfill the vision rather than the vision itself, that halts production and that halts the creative process in the room, especially in TV and film, more than we think it does. Oftentimes, even as an assistant, or even as the sole choreographer on a project, sometimes you just got to know when it's not you that should be speaking. And then when it is your opportunity, you be quick, you be concise, and you get to the point. And you follow that with some type of direct action to supplement what's happening. So if a choreographer is just I really want to fit this in, but this timing doesn't work, or can we do this on the other side? Bing, bam, boom. I'm oh yeah, I'm switching it to the opposite side. I'm like, yes, we could do that, and then we could do it in this time. And they're like, Amanda, how did you do that? They don't have time to know, but they'll say, Amanda, how did you do that? Teach the rest of the dancers. It's that quick, because they don't have the time, they don't have the bandwidth, because we just can't afford it. And usually they're feeling so much heat from direction and production and all the different departments that, like, it's just too much. So I think that with dancers, we really have to prioritize our research, our discernment, knowing when, having the wisdom to know when, and our, really those two things, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, to close that topic off, are there any tips that you would like to share for dancers as we prepare, arguably, for our busiest season yet?
Yeah, we're really fortunate that in this time we're all living in isolation. I think that there are a lot of free classes, there are a lot of ways to get our bodies moving, and there's a lot of focus on our facilities, because our facilities aren't really being used. But the one part of our facility that I think isn't really being tapped into just yet is our mental, the intellect. I think if we are nurturing our knowledge more, our knowledge of the film and TV world, understanding what each role requires, roles outside of dance, who is the director, who is the producer, what is the relationship that they have, and how does that affect the choreographer? Who's the client at hand, the McDonald's, the No Frills, and what does their brand kind of represent? I think if we hear about these jobs and we know what's happening, do your research, know who's working on it, research what their process is like. If you know anybody that might have worked around them or might know them personally, ask them questions. We can, a demo reel and a resume and agency representation, all of those are astounding tools. They're amazing tools. Okay. But if we are not nurturing ourselves as individuals as well, so that we are undeniably great in these settings and reliable in these settings, then what is an agent going to do for you? They're going to get you the job, but are you going to get rehired by the choreographer working on the job? Are you always going to be an addition? Although, that knowledge that you're going to be using, that you're going to be researching is not always going to be used. It's not always going to be tapped into, but what you're doing is that you're creating awareness. So you have wisdom in these situations. That is most important. Every job that comes around, first of all, I always have my ears to the ground. Always have my ears to the ground. And I got my ears to the streets.
Nice.
Yeah, and I always know what's going on. A lot of people, they hit me up for auditions. I might not know, but I'll realize later that I knew the person that was working on it, and they told me in casual conversation that they were working with this project or I just always have a keen ear. So I think it's just important, keep your ears to the streets. And when you know of something big that's coming up, do your research, know who's on it, do whatever you can. And then when that audition comes, be undeniable. Undeniable.
Are there any places that you can maybe point towards to maybe find this information? Like, where can dancers find information about, who is choreographing for a specific project, or, who are the producers and stuff like that?
Well, talk to people who know people, period, point blank. Talk to people who know people. Actually, yes. Talk to people who know people. Because, there's no platform, there's no information database. Besides, Actor will have things. There's Actors Access or whatever, they have breakdowns on there. But if you don't have access to those things, because they do require logins, talk to people who always seem like they know what's going on. Talk to people who aren't posting on Instagram every day of every job that they might be doing. Talk to people who may not always be in class, but they seem to always be assisting or always they're asked for. I would say that I am somebody that, I'm always down for all the questions. Because I know a lot of people ask, Diamond knows a lot of people in other industries, and he has a good handle on things that might be going on. Ask anybody who regularly travels to the United States, because unfortunately, that's where a lot of the directors and the producers are coming from, because we do host a lot of American TV here. So, and somebody will just lead you to somebody else. If they don't have the information, hopefully they could lead you in the right direction. If they are the right person to ask, they could probably lead you in the right direction for sure. Yes.
I'm going to say that one more time. So find someone who knows someone.
Find someone who knows someone. That's so broad, but it really works,
Now, something that we haven't had the opportunity to talk about on our show is convention culture.
Ooh, yeah.
Now, you've had the privilege of being a Monsters of Hip Hop cast member and also a Pulse Elite protege. Can you describe the short-term and the long-term effects of training in a convention?
Short-term effects. Money.
That's the big one.
Money sacrifice, This is not real. It's very real, sorry. Having to budget becomes very important. Having to structure your time, just, maybe restructuring your priorities is important, because, a lot of people have FOMO. And I think I learned very early on doing Pulse that part of me had to no longer care about missing the possibility of work back home. It began a very long journey of me understanding that what is mine will be mine in its time, when I started doing conventions more regularly, because I did miss a lot, and my absence actually did negatively affect me in many cases, where small ways, like people just didn't know I was ever in the city, and still sometimes now that happens. People just don't know I'm here, so they don't ask for me. Mm-hmm. They don't know to ask for me. Obviously, that could be solved by just thinking of me and sending a message, but I noticed that I've created a lot of distance between myself and my community in many ways, that I'm working on. I'm working on closing the gap now. Short-term effects would be money, and time, distance or proximity with your own community, and just being okay with missing that audition because you're training here in a way that you don't have access to at home, and that has to be more important for whatever space of time in your life that you're in. Those are probably the only two short-term effects. As far as long-term effects, and these are all benefits, networking. I'm somebody who I've always wanted to be on a visa. I've always wanted to be working in the States. Now, although I will live in LA at some point, we all know what the political climate is right now and how that affects applying for visas and things of that nature. But I am very visible in LA because I travel there often, to a point where people think I live in LA. People think I live in Toronto. People think I live in LA. Like, nobody knows where I'm at. And that is really, really dope, actually, because I didn't have to spend the 25, 30 grand moving to the States with stability and structure. People just ask for me, and when they ask for me, I show up. I've been asked on multiple occasions to be on skeleton crews for things, to assist for this, to, be a dancer for that. Yeah, so I think those are the long-term benefits, is definitely building a network. And also, if you are trying to get a visa, it just builds your understanding of self in that very foreign environment, so that when you go to the States, you don't have to always work to get past feeling isolated or feeling like you don't know anybody. I have a home in LA, and I have a home in New York, and I have a home here. And I never, ever, in classes, in social settings, I don't ever feel that fear of talking to people I don't know, because I'm around people that I know. I'm around people I feel comfortable with, and I have families everywhere. So
I want to touch on one part of, I guess, the long-term, benefit from the convention culture, and what you mentioned was networking. Can you talk about the importance of why networking outside of the dance community is important?
Yes. Networking outside of the dance community is important for reasons actually that I kind of touched on earlier in our question about choreography. Is speaking the language of others is necessary. Diversifying your skill set, all of that.
Yeah.
I think in talking to people, that is one major key is to in me knowing what's going on in this city without having agency representation that is dance based. Without for so long, I felt like I was far removed because I wasn't represented for actually a very long time here. But knowing people, knowing directors, knowing producers, some of my closest friends are like big time people now in the industry, actors who are doing things, working on projects. I think keeping my circle, I haven't even especially worked on my circle being as diverse as it is. I just have, I always feel the inclination to talk to people that I don't know. I have a curiosity. And so when I'm on set and when I'm, I could be at an event or I could just be among friends, I'm always asking questions and I'm just genuinely interested in how people look at things that I thought I knew something about. Because it's just more knowledge, it's more understanding, broadening that horizon, and then creating, like an underground railroad type passageway of information that is always flowing. I got my ears to the streets, like I said before. So that is a major way that I always know what's happening and can always decide whether or not I want to be a part of something. It gives me more time than getting an email from my agent and them saying, oh, do you want to do this now? The audition is 5 minutes from now. And we have a callback tomorrow and your life is shutting down for 3 days for this project that you don't even know is going to happen. Chances are I've known about it for a few months and I've been reading up about it and I've been deciding whether or not I want to place myself in that environment. So now that the opportunity is here and in front of me, I can make a more informed response. And I'm no longer affected by the last minute type frenzy demands that kind of sway our entire community and industry so much.
Such an interesting point to make. Do you think that a lot of people are pressured to say yes so quickly because of that very reason? Yeah,
you think it's the only thing that's happening and the only thing that's going to be happening. So it is important to just keep an ear out and to be talking to people who aren't involved in what you're involved in, because somebody always knows someone who knows something else. And we always get locked into thinking that this is going to be the last job of the year. And there are like 7 more jobs, so it gives you a lot of peace of mind if you just network a little bit more and ask people the right questions.
Would you say you're actively bridging the gap between, industries? And if so, how?
Yes, I am. Besides just actively talking to people I don't know, I'm also always following up with people. That's something we don't always do. We meet new people and we're like, whoa, you're really cool. Let's have a nice conversation. And then it doesn't linger on for much longer than that. I think it's important to get really good at emailing. Send somebody a nice email. If it's not comfortable enough for you to text or for you to shoot somebody a call, send them an email. Say, hello, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity that we did way back. I've been learning so much from it. And please let me know if you have anything coming up in the future. I would love to be involved in any capacity. Or just a part of a conversation. I would love to pick your brain. Boom, bang, boom, done. And the ball is in their court. As long as the ball is in their court, the world is yours. You have a series of opportunities that could come your way, and then God could step in and say, okay, this is what I want to come in at this time, and that conversation, that seed that you planted over there, I'll just bring it your way at this time. And I just believe that is really, really, really imperative. It is necessary for us, especially as dancers, being in an industry that's already so secluded and kind of off on its own. Bridging the Gap is doing that, and I actively do that. I just actually, it's also creating space for dancers in spaces that have not accommodated for dancers. About a month ago, I emailed Daniel's Launchpad, which is an amazing facility for artists, but dancers are not a part of that artist bunch. They have recording studios and rooms for textiling. They even have big open concept spaces that could have mirrors installed, but those
spaces are beautiful.
They're beautiful. I think one major thing that dancers don't do is they don't go to where they don't have a place and just create one. We're all at our dance studios and in our, our basement studios and whatever, but we're not going to the facilities that actually exist and expanding them. So I emailed them and I said, hello. I wrote a very eloquent essay about how their space does not accommodate for dancers or painters. So I gave them a well-rounded account so that it didn't seem as emotionally charged as it actually was. And in that, it began a very fruitful conversation. And though, they were very transparent in not having the budget or the time to accommodate. This was also prior COVID-19, but they didn't have the time to prioritize that. But they knew how important it was, and they recognized they're artists themselves. And so they're willing to keep me a part of the conversation when talks of renovations come up. Because I had been to the space, I went on to do more research just to refamiliarize myself with the rooms, the names of the facilities that I thought would be great places for dancers. I was like, Sugar Hall is really, really dope, and it could maybe facilitate some mirror installation. And they were like, wow, thank you so much, because I did the groundwork for them. And I put the onus on them to fulfill something, but I didn't put the work solely on them to make the changes. I appeared very involved and very knowledgeable on what they were presenting, as well as what I was trying to enforce. And, if dancers aren't doing that type of work, then we're not really expanding our community, our outreach, our effect at all. So I think that is one way that I'm trying to bridge the gap. People like Diamond are bridging the gap as well. People like yourself, Roy, bridging the gap as well. I think the more that we involve other art forms in what we're doing, talking to people who are running panels and saying, hey, maybe you should have a dancer or a choreographer on that if you're talking about Black creatives in the city. Just starting the conversation is so important, and it can't happen if we're only talking amongst ourselves.
Oh, so important.
Yeah.
A lot of important things to take away from that. I know it's a lot to take in, but if you guys haven't had an opportunity to check Daniel's Launchpad, please do. I was fortunate enough, especially with Diamond and Ella, the three of us actually went to go take a tour of the place. It's spectacular, and it does cater to a lot of creatives within our industry. And like Amanda said, dancers aren't part of that equation yet. But
we're working on it.
Yeah, no, Sugar Hall, if you guys ever get an opportunity to go for a tour, tours are, when we open up and everything's back to normal.
Yeah.
Go in for a tour. I can tell you right now.
It's beautiful. It's so big.
Yeah. It's a co-working, just in case you guys didn't know what it was, it's a co-working space for a lot of creatives. And for those in the creative industry, we all know that co-working spaces are expensive. They're expensive. But Artscape Daniel's Launchpad, with the help of several levels of government, several arts councils, they have put a lot of funding into this one space that is designed specifically for creatives. So take a look into that. It's located on Queens Quay.
I think it's Queens Quay. It's
right
like
across
Lakeshore and Jarvis.
Yeah, it's right across from Sugar Beach.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right across from there. So take a look at that when you guys have a chance. Now, the last question I do want to talk about is the importance of artistic integrity, and how spirituality plays a role in that.
The importance of artistic integrity. So this is a big question. I have many times I've burnt bridges and I've removed myself from toxic situations, or I've been removed from situations that just weren't working for me. They weren't in line with my values. They weren't in line with my structure, my spiritual values, my values as a visible minority, being a Black woman, being a young Black woman. There are so many things that I have no business being a part of if my fight is for more representation, or if my fight is for more substantial opportunities, or if my fight is for the reverence of this craft. Intrinsically coming from me, viscerally coming from me as per my experience on a human level. I think that sometimes in dance we feel desperation because a lot of our opportunities
seem to be few and far between.
I just think that there's nothing more important than feeling safe, and there's nothing more important than feeling valued. I think in my younger years, say maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, I was fiery, I was passionate, I was just about that life. I was like, I'm gonna speak up no matter what. And although I'll never regret, I have no regrets. I have no regrets in my professional career in times where I've spoken up for myself or for somebody else, or just for something that just needed to be changed. I'll never regret that. But I think a lot of people struggle with that because of that desperation. It's important to spend a lot of time on your own. It's important to spend time distanced from dance so that we are applying our lives, so that we have lives to apply to our work. Because it is through those lives and through that genuine relatability that people can look onto your work and feel like they see themselves in it. That's what creates sustenance. That's what creates success. Success being consistency and leverage, so that you can speak on what you want to speak on not without the backlash, but without losing what you've worked so hard to earn. I think that it is important to just have a life. Personally, my artistic integrity has grown and it's shifted and evolved over the years. I wouldn't be who I was without the conversations that I've had, without the people that have invested in me in dance, outside of dance. But I also would not have my artistic integrity if I wasn't grounded in the Word of God. I don't say that lightly. My relationship with my spirituality has been a process to develop. I grew up in the church. I found dance in the church, but I actually parted from the church, and my upbringing was in that of the Pentecostal apostolic world. So I grew up, for those of you who may be American, that's like similar to Baptist church. Yeah, so the jumping and waving, the dancing, the music, the tambourine, the hands clapping, like that world was my world. And because it's also a very intense world, and I wasn't sure if I related to some of the practices. And so, coincidentally, well, not coincidentally, because I believe that God was working, my life parted from regular church going at the same time my life in dance just skyrocketed. And so I felt this distance from God, but through very, very, very intensely riveting times of my life and experiences that happened very close to one another, my artistry began to change. And I began to feel like my art was a form of survival, and simultaneously began to feel this responsibility for creating work that reflected my experience. Because in me in my darkest times, not knowing how to go, not knowing how to speak, how to conduct myself, how to act, and just acting out, I realized that I had no ground underneath me. And it took a lot of prayer and a lot of meditation and a lot of affirmation and a lot of prayer for me to get out of my situation. I think that that's a part of myself that I hold so close to me because it brought me back. You know, I never stopped believing. But because I wasn't actively practicing, being in those dark periods and knowing that I only had God was what fueled me back to life. And it also brought me back to my artistry. It also brought me back to dance. I shouldn't even say that it brought me back to dance. It was in those moments that I arrived in dance, that I arrived truly in my body. And so now it's no question for me to just say, no, that's not for me. Because I know what life is like to not prioritize my beliefs. And I know what life is like to not prioritize my peace of mind, and my dominion, the dominion I have over myself, the wisdom I have, the humility I have, and the spirit of forgiveness that I always pray for. Working on that because I still get a little feisty, but I think all of those things together fuel my dance in a way that I really can no longer try to explain. And my movement speaks for itself. And for those who are close to me, or for those who witness me from afar, or who have taken my class, you see that it's something that we can't ignore if we're learning movement that comes from me. And I hope that inspires those who know me, who don't know me, who are around me, who just witness me in those types of spaces to prioritize their own beliefs in that way, and to not wait for a moment where you're in your darkest hour to then look at God and say, oh, you were there all along, because he's here right now. In light of COVID-19, I think that's maybe one major reason why I've found a lot of peace, because I know that he's in control. And I have no complaints, because in him being in control, I've found a lot of time to just spend time honoring him, to spend time honoring myself as a result. And that's something that far surpasses my need to be dancing right now, or my need to be making money. Because as long as he's first, as long as I keep my eyes fixed, then I could do anything. So that is the importance of artistic integrity to me.
Okay, now, in season 1, I asked the same question at the end of every episode. In season 2, I decided to change it. So if you could give one challenge to dancers this year, what would it be?
Be undeniably great. Whatever that means to you. That may mean extending your skill set, diversifying that. That might mean going back home. That might mean picking up the phone and calling someone to culture yourself, or to nurture your understanding of a thing. Spend time around your friends, lean on them, love on them, build your human side, nurture your humanness, or just do a lot of research and nurture your intellect. Speak those languages, practice them, be a well-rounded and a multifaceted artist. Be great with your business, so that nobody can deny you of the table that you've built for yourself and the seats that you fill yourself. Don't fight for a seat at the table. Be the table. Somebody said that I was at a what was it? I was at a panel discussion that Lola Media Group was putting on for record execs. I went to that, and one of the execs on the panel, she does a lot of work with Complex Con and stuff, and she said, my life changed when I stopped fighting for a seat at the table. I said, I am the table. And that, I rock with that heavy. So be the table, be undeniably great. Don't allow space, don't allow room for anybody to tell you, especially for my women, my Black women. Don't give space for anybody to tell you where they think you fit. Just be it, and they will have to accept you. I also think that we've talked a lot about the things that affect dance, that play into dance, that elevate dance, or that nurture your dance understanding. But I think that doesn't excuse being mediocre. And I think Toronto has a habit of being mediocre on many fronts. I like to think that in a short way, the ways that I struggle to book jobs here because I don't match or I don't fit are the ways that I've booked multiple jobs out in places like LA. I've been asked to be a part of projects in places like New York, and I'm constantly asked for by some of your favorite choreographers. It's important that we encourage individuality. It is important that we encourage professionalism, but it's also important that we encourage quality, because that quality, when you get to LA, the way that we're moving right now is not going to get you anywhere there. Nobody's going to look twice at you. So I would just encourage that we also take those challenging classes, take those classes of vocabulary that we haven't learned yet, take those classes from teachers whose artistries are just on next levels that you don't understand and don't relate with. Let them teach you. And then you'll be undeniable.
Perfect way to end it off. How can they follow your journey? For anyone listening and, want to continue the conversation we had today, how can they find you?
You can find me at Amanda May on Instagram and Facebook. I don't have Twitter. I have a YouTube channel under Amanda May, spelt AMVNDAMAY. Don't ask me about the V. If you spell it in capitals, the V kind of plays as an upside down A. I like to be artistic in my shit. Okay. AMVNDAMAY. That's me.
Amanda, a pleasure. Thank you again for being a guest on the show.
This was very fun.
Once again, thank you to Dance Life X for hosting the podcast episode for today. They do have an ongoing fundraiser sale, which all proceeds go directly to their faculty. So be sure to check that out. The Dance Plug is also running a relief fund on GoFundMe, which will go directly back to the artists. Again, stay safe, stay home, keep informed, keep up to date with everything that's going on surrounding COVID-19. Make yourself knowledgeable about the government relief plans that are in place. I know in April, be on your toes because that CRA phone line is going to be crazy. So there are programs in place that will definitely help, artists who wouldn't necessarily qualify for employment insurance. So keep informed with that. Make sure you have all the proper documentation ready to go, and then apply when the time is right. My name is Roy. I am the host of the Unplugged podcast, bringing you a new episode of season 2, and we will see you guys next week.